Japanese culture. So like there's so many things. Tabby toes.
I can get fly, 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 fly. I can get fly, 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 fly. I can get fly, 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 fly.
You know, one of the things I love to, push forward, not only am I a woman who's like really been doing sneakers, forever, but I'm a full figure woman. And it's like, you know, I like to represent that we have one that's been here. And there's a lot of other women that I give a lot of props to who's been around, who's kind of been like I've had mentors and I have people who influenced me and people who helped me be who I am, because they're always like, look, that sneaker's coming out here, go get it, or look, I'm gonna hold this pair for you, or I'm gonna do these different things. So it's just like along the way I've met women who've helped me be who I am today. So I think for me it's important to give that back and help these younger generation be the best. And you know what, I think really I'm looking for a little me in this next generation. I'm looking to see who that is, and I'm looking to see who she is and what she wears, and it's so interesting because I have not found her yet, and I'm looking for that little Jixie who's crazy about sneakers, who's like learning everything, who cops them sneakers. So if you find her, point her out to me because we're gonna be besties. There's a pair of sneakers I have, it's only 75 of them that was like ever made. And I did a post and I said, I'd love to meet another woman who has these. I met one. Yeah, and we became really good friends because it's such a unique sneaker. And she was like, yeah, I have those. I was like, no way. So she took a picture of them and we were like, we're like besties now, because her collection is crazy. But to get those sneakers, like they only came out in one store a certain time. So very interesting. But I feel like that, like sometimes like there's sneakers that connect us and there's sneakers that tell a story about who we are. And I just want to meet more women who have this like appetite for sneakers the way I've had it. But I have a girlfriend of mine who says, you are one of one and you just have to accept that. And I'm like, I can't be like there's another little Jixie out there who's all in it, and I can't wait to find her. Find little mini me who's out there really like, collecting sneakers. Like I used to do sneaker battles. I used to like really be like outside on standing on lines and camping out. Like I did all the rights. I passed all the righteous rights already to get to where I am at today. So it's like it wasn't overnight building a collection. It's not overnight to gain the knowledge. So it's like, do I see other women that's really out there wanting to kind of follow in this path, right? Wanting to study this, wanting to really know, wanting to really cop things that are unique for them, not what they see online. So it's like the times have changed, but I think we'll find a lot of young women in this next generation coming up that's just like very much into everything that encompasses sneakers. I think, part of like, I want to leave a legacy behind that's just like very much knee deep in sneaker culture and the things that I've done and I've contributed, but inspire other women to create in sneaker culture, right? In the sneaker industry, like create creatively. Like this is our, sneaker culture, the art of loving sneakers comes from the hood. It comes from being poor. It comes from the only statement that you can make is by what you wear, because you don't have houses, you don't have cars. And something that I had to learn is that like hoods look different in everywhere you go. You go to Chicago, hoods are segregated. You have one race on one side of the Chicago, you have race on another side, you got a race somewhere else. Then you go to like somewhere like Cali, where the only Latinos they have there is a Mexican culture. So it's not like Puerto Rican culture, and Mexicans are very different from Puerto Ricans and other Latino cultures. So then you go to like Texas, Mississippi, it's all different what the hoods look like. New York is such an interesting dynamic of a hood because we all live together. So it's like there's no segregation in New York. It's like, downstairs you got Asian, upstairs you have African American, next door you got Dominicans, here you got Puerto Ricans, and we all on top of each other. What you doing? What you want to eat? Oh my God, you wearing those sneakers? I like those. How you doing today? So it's like we all grew up kind of like poor together, and the only thing our parents weren't aspiring for homes and cars and things like that because that wasn't attainable in those times. Even if you had a little bit of money, you had to have your name on paper, you had to have credit, you have to have these things. I don't think that my parents were taught that. My grandparents were like just learning these things. So it's like they came here to, my grandparents came to this country, came later, started learning how to work and learning how to navigate. Learning the language of English was hard. So moving forward, you have everybody who just wants to be respected and make a statement. And that was like what we were doing with sneakers in the hood. We were trying to make that statement. And I think for me, like moving forward is like leaving that legacy behind that, women have been here. I'm stamping it. Look, I time stamped it. Women have been here by all the work that I've put on the internet. You can find how long we've been, doing this and how long we've been participating in everything that the boys do. And moving forward, it's like now women have a reference to go back to. And whereas me, there's some sneakers, I swear, they came out in the 90s, they don't exist online. They're for women, they don't exist online. And it's like, how do you not have them online? You have everything online. That to me takes away from our history. It kind of erases our history because it looks like we never existed. And it's like, nah, we was here. We had those in a women's version and a men's version. And it's just, if it's not for somebody like me, then how do you preserve some of these things, or how do you keep those stories going? So I feel like I know my place, and I want to continue to inspire women to create, because it also leaves that timestamp, It's kind of like what the boys did. They started Kicks on Fire, Complex, Sneaker File, Sneaker News, all at the same time. They all started it. And it was a boys' game. And they all wear testers. They all came up at the same time. So now, where's the women in this space, right? They're in there somewhere. There's stories about women in all of those like medias and outlets. But there was no women's anything rivaling that, because it's a boy space for so long. So it's like now that shit changed. So in New York, you got all these like micro blogs about sneakers. There's so many women who do micro blogs. There's so many women that are doing blogs, and there's so many women that are doing creative agencies and events and art in sneakers and all these different things. So there's like so much, but to still be the only one, it speaks to how hard it is. For women in Japan, like, I guess from my perspective, sneaker culture, as much as it belongs to the hood culture here in the United States, and with the uprising of rap music, there was a time period where people were not into sneakers, right? It kind of like died down. So there was a time period where sneaker culture completely just faded. It died down. And when I say sneaker culture, I mean people buying sneakers, really liking sneakers. I remember a point where Air Max, I think it was like early 2000s, 95s, 97s, 90s, nobody was even wearing that out here. Like it was just like it was a little bit dying for a little while. But then you had like Asian exclusives. Air Maxes that only came out in Japan, Air Maxes that were collaborating with different just Japanese brands. There was a lot of emerging streetwear. I think like Harajuku culture was just like booming, and it was starting to be international. So sneaker culture very much was sustained by Japanese culture. Like, and I think that's something that like people really, like, you had to be knee deep in sneaker culture to know that. Like, you had to be a heavy consumer, because there was only sneakers that I could only get if I had somebody in Japan who was gonna order it for me, send it over to me, or if I had a store or a plug. One of the greatest things I had in my life was a family member who was in the military. When you have family member in the military and they go to Japan, you are lit, because from there, I'm like, go to this store, this store, this store. This is what I need. This is what's coming out. Back then, we didn't have raffles, so you couldn't do the raffles. They had to be there, stand on the line, and go get that sneaker. And I think that's what sustained some of these sneaker models, like Air Max. There's so many that was just created just as Japanese drops that don't exist anywhere else in the world. And I think that's like, that was one of the exciting things about like shopping in Japan, is just like finding these rare pieces that don't exist in New York, don't exist in anywhere else. But there's a big credit that goes in it. Sometimes I call it like sneakerhead mecca, because like that's where you go and you really see like kind of like where the style was derived from, in a sense, because you kind of see like, you know, Jeremy Scott, when he came out and he started doing like teddy bears and he started doing bones and just being very eccentric, you know, that's something that he took from a more international, and that wasn't something that would have been considered like here. That was something that was like out of the ordinary. It was too extravagant. You go like that in Europe. Europe is so minimalist, so that for them is just like, whoa, that's like, that is like how dare they like put like teddy bear heads on a sneaker. So it was like he brought that back to us, brought that back to hip hop. That's definitely, you know, comes from Japanese culture. So like there's so many things, tabby toes, you know. So when you see the toes and the Margielas, and when you see them there till this day, such a heavy, strong influence, you know. And then some of the legacy brands over there, and some of the like the women who bring it, you know, that's still creating with Nike and still creating with Jordan brand, you know. So it's just like there's such a long history of how, you know, Japanese culture, Japanese women have really influenced the game and sustained the game. And then it's like you sustain it, then you give it back, and then you do it again, and then we pass it back to each other. Because when it's hot in some places, it's not hot in other places. And that's always been like the hype. But for like people who really love it and really have been involved in it, it's just really been like a place where you're able to. They were like one of the first cultures to celebrate sneaker inspired. So it's like bear bricks, you know, when you think about like the dopest and the hottest bear bricks, where it became popular, the toys in sneaker culture, you know, you got to give it to like Japan. When you think about like first streetwear brands, you know, when you think about like Bape, and when you think about like, you know, ice cream, BBC, and just all the influences that came from Japan, it's just been like, for me, it's been something that's very intertwined in my sneaker game. Like I think in like maybe like from 04 to 07, very heavy into Asian exclusives, super heavy. I got like I got these Air Maxes, Ko and Boris. So I have like these with the koi fish. Only could get them in Japan. I have Air Force Ones that have like pony hair and zebra. It was like a '05 cop. For that time period, to have like zebra hair and pony on sneakers, that wasn't outside like that yet. And that's what I liked about like those collaborations. But you know, it's very, this culture is very embedded in your society and what you do. And it's so important for someone like you to continue and to tell that story over and over, so that the women in your community know that you've been in this building and this is the contribution that you guys like played to the whole world. Same thing with like Polo. When I think about Polo, like Polo died here. So Polo was heavy. Everybody was low lives, Ralph Lauren heads. That died here, right? Japan, that was super lit when it died here. So it's like that low life culture just went from Brooklyn to Japan. Then came back to Brooklyn, and when it comes back, pieces of $5,000. A Snow Beach piece is $10,000. And it's like, how did it elevate so much? It elevated because it became international right on that runway for streetwear and for street culture. And then it was all the way elevated. So it's just like, it's a beautiful exchange that has existed, but it's very prevalent between cultures of like American streetwear, especially like New York streetwear culture, like directly to Japan and back and forth, and even LA too, because LA has a big hand in like, I call it a little gentrification, but they have like, they've added a little flair to sneaker culture and that exchange as well, because they've switched it up. Because I see a lot of LA style here in New York, which I don't understand because we have seasons, but I get it. Because we have like boots in the summer, and that's real LA with it. So like, you know, wearing boots in the summer, cowgirl high boots, that's real Los Angeles with it. No, the New York girls will wear the boots like they do in LA. They'll wear it here. So I always learned like boots are for the winter, so we don't really do that here. And then all of a sudden I'm like, why y'all in boots for? Like, what's the booties? Like, I don't even like Jordan 2s in the summer too much because it's like a warm sneaker. Doesn't have too much perforation. So I don't even like a solid 2, let alone a boot. You know, there always has to be that one person to take that one strong woman to take that door slamming. It takes a small community of women to start building to then take over.